Welcome back, everyone, to the Miss Art World podcast. I am your host, Catherine, with my co-host, Samuel.
What is up, everyone? Let's talk about some art.
I almost thought you were going to say, bring bong.
Bring bong. TikTok's a very dangerous place.
It really is.
I stayed away from it for so long because I was like, I'm already on Instagram too much. And doing TikTok for my business and like hearing how I need to stay up to date. And I was like, okay, I'll jump on TikTok. It's just so bad. It's like so many videos that you just keep. I think I send everyone way too many videos from TikTok. You get very little, Katie.
Well, thank God, because between Emily and Evelyn, I get like 32 a day. Dear God.
I think I send Emily and Ben about like 10 a day.
Okay. So we are going to talk about Art Basel Miami, because Samuel and I just went and had a interesting time. When people ask you how your trip was, what do you say?
I say like, oh, it's fun. Performance artists are interesting. But Miami itself, Miami Beach was just so quiet. Like my whole thing, like I loved all the art and going around seeing all that stuff. But like the Miami Beach, the vibe I thought we were going, like the experience I thought we were going to get around the art was way different than what it actually was. Right? Like
and I wonder if it's because we're not super rich and like the really hot artists, because there's every news article I look up, they're like, oh, the parties were great. And I was like, where were the parties? Because I did not see any parties.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them were in that arts district on the mainland, but that's not South Beach, Miami, Basel. That is 40 minutes from Basel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that's where the parties are, you can't say that that's South Beach, because it's not. South Beach was super quiet.
It was so quiet. The only, I would say, party that we stumbled upon was just that bar that was a little more rowdy because they had live music. And I don't even think we listened to the live music that much because we were just so distracted by the weird people we met there. The girl that was basically butt naked, who cut a hole in a tablecloth and then put little pasties over her nipples, and then walked around with a giant strap on, and then telling people that she's part of our Basel because her butthole is famous because she's a porn star.
Yes. I mean, that's a very interesting story that we could come back with and be like, yeah, we met weird people, but
it wasn't like I thought would be like, okay, we see the party on the beach and like, the Miami idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like even when Tyler said like, oh, it's a strip club, yeah, I can't even talk. Strip club capital of the world. We saw one and we didn't even go in. It's not like we were looking for strip clubs, but like they're not hard to pass or like miss.
And it didn't look like there was a big party going on there either.
No, they were setting up a Christmas tree when we walked by. Yeah. And then we walked by again, the Christmas tree was lit. That was about it.
When people ask me, I'm like, it was great and awful all at the same time was the trip, because I think
because you're the people you were rooming with, right?
Yeah, he was the worst. No, I think just shoving slime into balloons was awful. No, I think because it was just so stressful at the beginning. I think I went through all the ranges of emotions, like excitement, stressed out, anxiety, excitement, then disappointment, then like realization. I don't know. It just was like a whole thing. And I think after the performance, it was very fun, but still a little disappointing with like trying to find the art scene that was
Yeah.
happening, and we just never found it. I think we left too early too. I think you're right.
Yeah, we should have, if we could do it, we should have probably stayed through the weekend, but
Mhm.
we were there for so long already. Like you
Yeah.
being one of the first acts um, was was hard because let's talk about your art before we get too far away. So Katie was at Satellite,
Right.
and she was the opening act, not act, performance, opening performance there. So day one we arrive. Day two we are able to get in and help set up, or she does all the hair and builds it up. So explain how was that process?
It was interesting. It was difficult. But I think going to a gallery space, meeting gallerists and curators that we've never met before is gonna come with issues because there's not that same kind of communication.
Mhm.
So I was supposed to get in at 10. They only had one ladder, and with my piece, I need the ladder. Like the whole time, I need the ladder. And so
Mhm.
I had to keep stopping and letting other people use the ladder.
And it's
I
too
never,
bad because when we first got there was two ladders.
yes,
They were working on this light to like fix the light, and they worked for the building. And I think the understanding was the guys were going to leave both ladders, but then they took the smaller ladder with them to go do more jobs that day. And then we were just stuck with that one giant ladder,
yeah.
which,
And
by the
they,
way, I am not a big fan of heights ever.
mhm.
So always force myself to go up there. But there's a couple times you're like, what's wrong? What's your face? And I was like, nothing. Just climb up the stupid ladder.
I didn't know that you didn't like heights.
Master. I heights in like a controlled area is fine, like on a roller coaster, on a plane. When I feel like I can't fall off, but it takes a lot of like going up a small ladder is easy. Going up a tall ladder where I look down and go, oh yeah, I would break something or die. Those are my only options.
Mhm.
Uh, is a little more scary.
What is that ladder? 16 feet, you think, or less than that?
Oh, I think it had to be like 16 feet. It could reach, like if I stood on top, like well over like a single story house.
Mhm. Yeah, it was, I should have, well, we couldn't find a tape measure. That's another
Yeah,
thing. Like they said that they would have tools there and they had no tools there.
I
So
know.
next time I'll probably just rent my own ladder and bring my own tools, because that would have sped up the process so much that day and not having to come back the next day and do some more. So I think the whole installation process was exhausting and frustrating, but I think it's always going to be exhausting and frustrating.
Yes, but I think like if you had your own tools and a ladder, I think we could have messed around with more of the mechanics of certain things than the you going by yourself the next day and just kind of finishing it
Hmm.
quickly because it needed to be done. um, because there's like new elements to it, like the slime and the paint that you're using, which I thought looked really cool there. Um, Talking to people that watched it on Instagram Live said it looked really cool, but I think we could have messed around with the how we hung them because I had some ideas for it, but it just we couldn't test them,
Hmm.
and we would have had to kind of test how they ran first.
Yeah. Yeah, because we just didn't have the capability or we just didn't have time. Like you
Exactly.
even had to, who knew that Miami Beach didn't have like a Walmart? So you literally took what, 4 hours to go into the mainland, to go to Target, to get all this extra stuff that I should have just brought all of that with me, like sucked it up and brought it all with me.
Yeah, except for, I don't know, like my suitcase that with the extra stuff you gave me was already just on the limit. So we would have to bring 2 suitcases.
Yeah.
But with knowing how much stuff we need now, like to make slime and all that stuff, I don't think, I almost think we can make the slime beforehand and take it. We don't have to fill it in the balloons. We could put it in like Ziplocs and whatnot, but then you know exactly how much slime you have to transport.
I 100% agree with you. And I had a thought, but then I wasn't sure if it would work out. You know how you put the ingredients into the bowls?
Mhm.
Can you put the ingredients into the balloons and then do the mixing, or you have to do the stirring?
You have to meet it, which means you have to take it with your hands and like really mix it up.
Can't you do that in the balloon skin or no?
You can, but how is that going to save you any time? The hard,
Do you
the
know
hard,
how long it took me to do this to the stupid balloon? Like
I know,
hours.
but it was like liquidy, right? So you'd have to do the exact measurements that you needed and then mix it up and then keep mixing the balloon. But we would still run into the problem of the balloon being filled because it's more of that liquid, like the paint we'd have to put the glue that's already a thick substance and then squeeze it into the balloon, and then we got to hold it and then do the same thing with the other ingredients.
I really want to do it here, build the hairpiece and then put in slime and paint and do kind of a controlled, really cool video piece of the different textures and things like that.
Oh, that'd be cool. I think what you could do too is you have an air pressure. If you're an air compressor, you could maybe do some kind of bag thing that you put it in the, like some kind of contraption, like a tube basically, and then on the other side of the air compressor you press the air, so then it pushes all the liquid into the balloon, so then you don't have to worry about that. You're just having something else push it for you.
Yeah, the pressure of it.
Yeah,
We could try that. Yeah.
but I think the piece turned out well. I would say the disappointing part of it was just being first, because I think you would have, if you followed someone that had a lot of people, I think it would have been well received. Because your piece, the cool thing about your piece, it didn't take like an hour. It didn't take hours for them to sit there and watch. That's why I liked this piece. It was, they could see or be there for a while and like watch you sit there. But really, the art was you getting up and like starting cutting the hair and becoming more violent with it and seeing all the stuff fall out of the hair, like all the glitter and just the chunks falling around in this nice circle on the floor, and it oozing over your head with the slime and the paint. And it was very visually interesting and very visually cool to see that. And then it ended, and then you can go on with your day and you can take a picture. Like the thing I really enjoyed is that they let you, the satellite lets you leave the art piece up with it down the floor, because it looked like, to me, it looked cool. It was like a hanging piece of art. Like they missed this performance and this is the remnants. And that was it, just falling here and there was it left over. Like you didn't go back and tidy it up or anything.
Yeah, I think that was a really cool opportunity to be able to leave it up. And I was slotted for an hour and it only took 15 minutes because we had it worked out where you were in my ear to slow me down or to speed me up, and my phone messed up. And so you fell out of my ear, and it was just, and almost maybe that's better to not have such a controlled performance.
I think so. I mean, we've talked to a couple of different performance artists, and they all have different takes on it. It's either unperformed or performed. I thought one thing that was very neat there was being able to meet a lot of different performance artists, which was really cool, and see how their performance was. And that's like Satellite. I hope Satellite becomes bigger because, or closer, or something to where it like pulls in people just walking by to see art almost, to go in, because like a lot of the performances were really interesting, or had a good take, or like were visually neat. Like I kind of, I'm sad we missed the one that did the light bath, but no one stayed around for the light bath. They just watched his performance. It was like they was tying up people on like the poles. Yeah, it was really interesting. I'm because Milk and Honey had theirs, and that was cool because we didn't see their performance, but we saw the layout of everything, and we took some really cool pictures. And the way they stacked everything in their like area where you could sit on like a tongue and be surrounded by like nipple pillows, but then you have like this floating eye and this other tongue like coming down, like just the way they laid it out was really interesting.
I thought they did an excellent job too laying it
Oh
out.
yeah.
And their
Because
chairs were so interesting. Like I wasn't expecting how interested I was in like these weird chairs with like arms hanging out, and like the rolling tongue out was just done so well.
Oh yeah, it was really cool.
Well, and at least I was able to do my performance because Xavier, who was the artist right after me, a part of his performance was going out onto the beach, stripping down, and then hitting rocks with a baseball bat. I think they were rocks.
They were rocks.
Out into the ocean, and like I think a couple minutes into his performance, after he had stripped down, a bunch of cops, like all cops from all different areas, came down and basically stopped the performance. And we stood around for 45 minutes to an hour maybe, and then we ended up having to go back to the gallery because the curator asked us to see the next performance. But it was, I can't imagine what was going through his mind. He says that he's kind of used to that.
Oh yeah,
But
Xavier, I would love to have on the podcast because he's a real cool cat.
He's a cool cat.
Yeah, so his piece was because he talks about a piece where he loves, just like every performance artist loves to strip down naked. He's one of the person that strips down naked and does his performance art pieces a lot of times. My favorite story when he was telling was him just doing a piece where he runs down the highway naked. And he passed some cops, and the cops were like, nope, you just keep doing you, man. You just run down naked. I got other stuff to do. Jessica's piece was interesting too. And
and that's Jessica E. Binkhorn, if you're looking her up.
Binkhorn. I looked up her full name. You can follow her on Wheelie in art, or I'm sorry, Wheelie_N_artist. And her piece was really interesting because she almost dressed up like a goddess in her wheelchair, and she sat in the like middle of the walkway, basically right in front of Satellite, and you couldn't get it, like you had to step out onto the bike lane in the parking area to get around her. And she had nice, like squared out with flowers and stuff like that. And she had 2 empty chairs that represented her siblings. And then she just sat there, and she kind of moved a little bit, but she didn't really do too much. But the people's reaction around her, just trying to walk through, like you saw a lot of people like go around her, go around the whole area and like look and see what was going on. And people are taking pictures, like, something's going on. But then you had these like people that are just so, I would just say self-centered, or like, and there's a ton of them. I didn't realize how many people are just so self-centered or so out of tune with what's going on that they would like walk through it, and like they wouldn't even notice that people were taking pictures or standing around watching her until they passed the group of people taking pictures. And they'd like look and they kind of look back and then just keep going. Like, it was so bizarre. And I thought it was a really interesting piece on the like humans themselves, because you even had people because a lot of the older, so let me just break this down in groups. The younger children or kids or teens all walked through, took some pictures, like understood like right away, like boom. They were like in it. They knew what was going on. And then you have the older groups without children doing the same thing, like understanding what's going around surround them, things like that. And then you had people with babies, and it would just be it wasn't a double. It was never the two parents, because it was the two parents, they would always go round with the infant. But if it was the one parent would just take the stroller and just like bulldoze whatever was in their way there. And that was interesting because I saw tons of just mothers or dads with strollers and just like walking straight through it, like not caring at all.
Which I wonder why. If you have the two parents, is it because you have more help to get the stroller down off the sidewalk and back up?
Maybe.
Or what? Because I think it's interesting, not to cut you off, but like to get around her, you didn't have to actively, it wasn't an active lane. Like there was room for you to walk safely down around in the street area and back up on the sidewalk. It's not like you had to get into a lane where people were driving like you were going to get hit or something.
Oh, exactly. Like the bike lane and the parking lane, there's like they had huge gaps. There's only like a 2-lane street, but it could easily be a 4-lane street. Like that's how big the street was. So it's not like you were going into traffic at all. They even had it coned out so people couldn't even come out and hit the bike lane. Like you're safe. You're so safe in that area. And there was a little ramp. If you were just noticed before, like they could have just ramped it down earlier and then ramped it back up. But they didn't. It was interesting to see, or strange, I guess.
Well, and it must have gotten worse too as the night progressed, because she got even more frustrated and then took to the the car lanes and started going down in the path of cars, because she was so frustrated that people weren't respecting her space.
Yeah, that's another, we had to have her on the podcast too, because I enjoyed talking to her so much there, because Katie, not me, I just was the help. Katie did her performance. We stayed around and she was covered head to toe in all of her like glitter and just like the slime and her dress. And I think Katie definitely wanted to change and get into her like nicer outfit. But as we were walking back, I was like, you look so cool. Like I would stay in this because this shows that you did a performance. Like I think more people will ask you questions about this than they will you done up. And how do you think that turned out?
I think it turned out really good. I think you were right, because we literally started walking a couple blocks and you're like, honestly, if I was your art advisor, I would tell you not to change. And I was like, because yeah, I was sticky, I was gross, I had glitter all over myself. But yeah, I stayed in it for the next couple performances. And even on the beach, there was a photographer for
Washington Post.
the Washington Post, who like grabbed me and was like, hey, I don't know why you look the way you do, but can I take your photo? So then I got to explain to him what I was doing. He took my photo. Who knows if it's ever going to be posted, but it was still like, oh, people are paying attention to the way I look, even though I'm not the like curated look that I like to go out as Miss Art World. It's more the aftermath of the performance. And that was almost a stronger message than the other way that I normally go out.
I agree with that completely. Like it showcased what the message actually is, because Miss Art World isn't necessarily like always this done up person. It's this woman, in my going out and seeing you do it, it's this woman that's almost not fighting back, but like bringing to light struggles and different ways women are perceived in the world and told different things and how they need to be a certain way, but you can be any way you want to be. And you don't ever need to necessarily be told. Like the hair piece is, you're in this beautiful huge piece of hair with like crowns and stuff like that, and you cut yourself out, and you didn't cut yourself out and become ugly and like put on this horrible mask or anything. Like you still looked very pretty in your dress. You just looked like the dress had a little bit of slime, but you had this like really cool glitter across your face, and you just looked like it was the aftermath of your structured, the way things are supposed to be structured, to where you are naturally. And you looked better and more human in that more natural look.
Yeah. Did we explain Jessica's concept?
Not really.
Okay. We will have her on, but I liked her whole concept of she struggles every day being in a wheelchair. And so her concept is about the struggle that she goes through with her disability and trying to bring advocacy or
just kind of show people that they're, as much as we think we're doing to help people in wheelchairs, there's not a lot. Like they put up some ramps and stuff like that, but it's not as user friendly as it should be. And on that note, like I'm taking this kind of workshop class about social media, and they always talk about writing out what you're saying first. So then that's what you're going to put up. So if someone can't hear, you can type out exactly what you're saying. So then they can see what you're saying instead of you afterwards typing out that script. Where your focus is more built on having everyone be able to use it, having like not the normal, but like the people that have no disabilities able to use it, and then thinking about the people that have disabilities. So if you think about everyone first, it's easier to build a building with the ramp first than to add the ramp in later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting point of view. And then the last piece we saw that day was Jocelyn's. I am not even going to attempt to say Jocelyn's last name.
Can you spell it? Do you have it out?
Beausire.
Okay.
And Jocelyn did a hanging, basically she washed clothes. And she boiled water and she washed clothes, and she sat in this chair, and then she would take off a piece of clothing and wash that and then hang it over these buckets. And some of the buckets were hooked up to the sound, so you could hear it like drop into the bucket.
Did that not freak you out? That freaked me out. I thought the water was going to splash all over and then she was going to get electrocuted.
No, it didn't freak it didn't freak me out because those speaker things aren't necessarily plugged into the wall. So it
Okay.
just shorted out I think if it was plugged to the wall, I'd be like, oh my God, she's dealing with water and it being plugged to the wall.
I literally was like, oh no, let me go mop up this area for you.
But yeah, everyone does such long pieces. And it's not a complaint, it's an observation. We talked to the performance artists and the majority of them like doing long pieces. Not being a performance artist, I've now decided that I will become a performance artist called Mr. Fart World.
And you have like 7 or 6 pieces, but you can only remember number 1 and number 7.
Number 5. Number 1, number 5. But I don't know where it's going with that. But yep, you'll see me in my new sash next week. No, I'm playing.
Don't tag me, okay?
But yeah, it was. So then let's finish up with the art, because Art Basel's not necessarily just performance pieces. I know Katie does a lot of performance. We interviewed a couple performance artists.
And we'll have Jocelyn on too to talk a little bit more in depth on her concept too.
Mm-hmm. I believe she's an engineer.
Oh, is she really?
Yeah, so she's like studying to be an engineer, but she's a performance artist at like the same time. So she like goes back and forth to be performing a whole bunch and then not performing because she's studying for school.
It's an interesting difference.
Yeah,
it's like Tyler and I put together, really.
Yeah, exactly. Tyler's out there doing performance pieces.
Which would be hysterical. I don't know what he would do, but
but yeah, so we saw Satellite. We went to Satellite a couple of times, which was, if you have an opportunity or next year when Satellite's back up, look to see which performance artists you want to go to and then go. I would suggest doing it one day because you can easily, it wasn't a huge space, just like you can walk around for hours, but it's a space that you can, if you're going to stay there for like 3 hours or 4 hours, you can see a couple of different performance artists, see the ones you want, and then go see other places. Like it's worth seeing.
And the location is good. It's close to Basel. It's close to a couple other satellite art shows that are not called Satellite. I feel like they need to change their name at some point because it's just confusing, or Genius. I'm not sure. So
yeah, right. And then we went to Untitled.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's 2 places that we went to, is Basel and Untitled. Which one do you want to talk about first, Katie?
Let's talk about Untitled first, because that's the one we went to first. And so, that was in one day. That was a lot of art in one day.
A lot of art. Untitled is in this beautiful building on the beach. So every time you turn your head, and it's all white, sun shining through, everything's so bright, you almost need sunglasses in there. You look off to like your left and you can see the beautiful ocean and seagulls flying, and then you see all this really cool art on the walls, and they have it like a snake where you just go down one side and you can see all that art, and you can't cross track. It's literally like a straight line, and then you come back up and then you loop back down and you just snake it all the way. And then you're done, and then you're not lost and you're not confused and you're not like,
what did I miss?
See this? You got to see everything. And the nice thing that I loved about Untitled over Basel is Untitled had the artist there, like, or just people that loved that art. Like one of the women, I guess I should stop saying girls, I'm not that old. Not everyone's younger than me. One of the women there was and I took a picture. I'm not gonna like jump back on my phone and look around for it, but she did yoga mats, and she realized after, like, because she's an artist and she does a little performance art, she realized after watching like Lululemon commercials and a whole bunch of yoga commercials, there is no Indian women in those commercials at all, even though they're doing yoga. And she was like, this is like very weird and confusing. And then when she really started thinking about it, it was because the women in the yoga commercials, they're not just advertising towards women, but they're kind of advertising towards men too. Like, hey, look at these yoga pants. Your wife or your girlfriend would look beautiful in these yoga pants. Look how hot this woman is, kind of doing it. It's almost sexualized. And she understood that most Indian women don't, in those kind of commercials, don't want to be sexualized. But I don't know, the guy really got into like a 10-minute conversation with me about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he sat there and talked to me for a while. I was like, I don't know where Katie is. I think I lost her. And you were behind me talking to some other guy about the art on the other wall. But and then basically what she does is she puts her body image on these cut up yoga mats, and they are in sexual poses, or like sexualized poses, not sexual poses. Sexualized poses are like provocative poses, where she's, I think maybe even provocative is not even the right word. I think it's just like glamour,
Like pinup almost?
kind of like pinup. I would say a little more like pinup. Like she's clothes and stuff like that is just very sexy. Something very sexy about it. And then she would paint the outline and details of it on those yoga mats. And then her performance, which she did every day at 3, she would go there and do Twister with the cut up yoga mats and things that she painted on it, and play Twister on those yoga mats until she couldn't play Twister anymore. And that was it. It was interesting. But
Yeah.
anyway,
And
you got to meet the artist. Like Xavier was there selling, not like selling his piece, but he wasn't even pushing it. Like the one thing that's nice about the artist there is they just want to talk about their art and get you to know what their meaning is. And everyone there wanted that. There was hardly anyone sitting there like on their phone in their suit going, not rich enough, son. Keep on stepping. I say, like, it's just, that was Basel.
yeah, they're so much more friendly at Untitled. And not all the artists were there. I don't think that's a requirement, but like a lot of them were there and just wanted to talk to you about their artwork. Or even the gallerist. There was one sculpture that I really, really liked, and I just mentioned, I looked over and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And he came and talked to me about the piece and the concept. And you just didn't get that at all at Art Basel. At Art Basel, there were people on the phone with other people trying to sell artwork, completely ignoring the people around you.
Oh, yeah. People with tape measures, and they like measure a piece out and be like, so the piece is 12 by 18, and I think it will look great in the dining room of the blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh God, like going from one happy, like bright, to this dingy, like dark chaos. It was almost dark chaos in Basel. So I guess we're switching over to Basel now. Like you walk into Basel, they're very strict on COVID.
You just sign up for like a time to go in.
Yeah, exactly.
They made it so complicated.
And then you go in and it's not that complicated, but there's a ton of people there, and they're like aimlessly walking because there's no structure to it at all. Like it's almost planned to be chaotic. Like they almost want you to go several times to be like, oh, did you see that piece in the far left corner? You're like, no, how did you get there? And well, you got to turn around 3 times to go through the secret entrance, and then you found the great art. Like the majority of the art that we saw that was really interesting was in the middle, but it was hard to get to without almost backtracking and getting lost. Like when you look at a map, you go, okay, it's not too bad. But when you're walking through it, it's bad. Like it's almost like it's a maze. Like if Grandma and I were there, we would still be there today. Grandma and I are terrible at mazes, and we would just be stuck there. at Art Basel. They would think we're an art performers or something. I have no
Like,
idea.
how do we get these two people out of here? Yeah, it's just, I think it's so big, so dark, and it, and because it is set up like a grid, but there's so much of it that there's no way they figure out how to see it all.
Yeah, because you couldn't walk straight down back and forth, because there were some that kind of blocked you off and you had to turn. But then that square that they put right in the middle to block you off was, you could walk around to that square to get back on track, which you and I, we decided that, kind of looking at the map, it was easier to do the big square and then try to do the inner square. And that didn't work. It didn't work at all. There's so many times I got lost.
Yeah. Well, and I was worried that if I actually ever lost you, I would never be able to find you again.
Mhm.
But there was things at Basel that I really liked. We kind of went on the outer section, and there were bigger installations where it wasn't it what I don't I'll have to do more research, because it felt like a lot of what the LA Art Show does in their diversity section, where it was more based on installation and less about selling these pieces, because they
Mhm.
had the large sculpture of the people running up the stairs.
Yeah,
They
that was
had the
cool.
leaves, like those were super cool, but no one was around to sell those artworks. It was just an interesting um, pieces to look at. And then you jump back into all the booths, all the artwork being sold.
Yeah. And there was just the friendliness. It was just cold, unfriendly art. And there was a couple of times that we ran, and not the whole thing, but there was a couple of times that we ran into very nice people there, or like the artist or like galleryist wanted to talk about certain things, but the majority of it was people just trying to make money. And it just felt very unart like.
Mhm. Well, and so Basel, I believe, opens to the VIPs like Tuesday or Wednesday. And so we got there Thursday. Can you imagine how these gallerists are on Sunday when they're like really trying to sell all their artwork? It's got to be even worse because they're at the tail end of the week, and trying to move their inventory.
Yeah.
But I
It's,
think if we're going to talk about trends, I do think the biggest trend that we saw there were a lot more um, pieces that were talking about diversity in color, race, body type. Like there seemed like there was a lot more representation of Black people than I've ever seen.
yes, I agree with that. But there was, my favorite pieces were all from the Black artist or Black community that was there. Like even in Untitled, like the sections that had showcased or highlighted African American or Black artists from around the world, their art was so interesting and so beautiful. Like there was so many people there all the time.
Well, and the article that I was just reading from the New York Times talked about why it was so different this year. And I guess Basel had different rules for galleries to be able to be accepted into
Mhm.
Basel. And they changed it this year. So they were able to accept a lot more gallerists who had diverse backgrounds and diverse artists than they've had before. For example, one of the rules had been you had to have an established space. And there's a gallery who has more of a pop-up space in New York, and they weren't able to qualify to be in Basel because it wasn't like an established residency for their gallery. But
Mhm.
they changed those rules, which allowed more galleries who weren't able to be shown more equality within the space rather than just all the blue chip galleries that have been established for 20 years. Like
Mhm.
other galleries are being able to get their foot in the door, therefore be able to show their different artists that they want to show.
And honestly, I feel like those were the probably the places we liked. If we
Mhm.
if we had to pick, like those the the smaller ones that we walked into, like the middle where it was very hard to get to, very confusing, those were the coolest art. Like that's where we saw the most diverse art there. It wasn't like these weird giant pieces that you could hang up and be like, what's the piece of that? Well, I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't really have a meaning behind it. It's just there's
Well, I
more
think
meaning in the middle.
we have been to enough fairs to start seeing the same artists over and over, like the same
Mhm.
type of artists, and to see the different type of art that is showcasing um, diversity is kind of a refreshing new element to the art shows than we haven't gotten from other shows before.
Oh yeah. Are you gonna edit
Mhm.
any of this out or no?
I
No.
don't know. I'm gonna listen to it and see, but probably not.
Okay. Well, if you don't edit any of this out, let's end on this note. Art Basel's week, the most fun part was water skiing or jet skiing or whatever you call it. That was a blast. And my favorite part was being out there and having Katie on the other jet ski, and she couldn't see, and the guy kept waving at her to go fast. He kept doing the hand signal like faster, faster, faster. And Katie was going, just chugging along, little jet ski, enjoying her life. And I went back to her and I was like, what's going on? And she's like, I can't see his hand signals. And I was like, and she's like, can't see his hand signals. I don't know what he's trying to tell me. I said, the only thing he's been telling you for the past 5 minutes is to go faster. I don't think he's telling you anything else but to speed it up.
Well, they
And then
freaked me out because they're like, if we do this, it means there's cops. If we do this, there's a thing, there's a what manatee mating that you could
yeah,
hit. Don't hit those. I'm like, oh, I'm terrified.
yeah, I was terrified of hitting a manatee too. I didn't want to like blow right through a manatee and have guts flying all over the place. But
I
I think
love that honestly, that's my favorite part of the trip too, which is sad because we went to Art Basel to see art and our favorite thing was jet skiing. But
that and having cigars that one night was fun.
oh yeah, that was fun. Hmm.
It was just we there was no party excursion thing.
Hmm.
Like I almost wish, like if we could go back and do it, I almost wish that we got in our swimsuit every night basically and said, okay, let's walk down that strip to the hotels and get into a hotel and just hang out by the pool.
Hmm. Yeah, because I really liked the jacuzzi hotel drinks that we
Yeah,
just
me
stumbled
too.
upon.
And
Hmm.
but we were so tired from walking, no joke, like 15 miles that day because we walked to one end of the island, hit the water, and then found out that we were supposed to go to the other side because they didn't have the right address. So we had
Hmm.
to Uber there. Oh, but we already were over there at the beginning of the day because
Thank
we
God
were
that Uber didn't kick us out either.
oh, I know, for not having our mask.
Yeah.
I know, because we didn't think we needed it because we were going to be outside. No one, we weren't going to Uber. We are going to walk everywhere. So by
Yeah.
the time we were done jet skiing, we were so tired.
I think if we go again, we go later in the week, we spend like 2 days in South Beach and then a couple days in the mainland
Agreed.
short coast and go to Winwood or whatever. Because that, as I've gone through and looked at what people have done the rest of the time, that's where everything is. That's like where the party is, which
Mhm.
blows my mind because it's mainland 40 minutes from Basel.
Yeah,
So,
right. I just
mhm.
think it's the rich area, basically. Because I was trying to explain it to people here too. I was like, They're like, well, it's not like the beach, or it's not. I was like, no, like I thought it'd be more exciting than Santa Monica. And I ride my bike or do anything down Santa Monica, there's things going on. I understand there's a lot of homeless people there doing weird things too, but there's like a DJ set up just playing music out of his car, like trying to get people to dance. There's dancing. Like if I wanted a salsa, I go salsa, and like there's things going on all the time, to go to this place that's just quiet and
Hmm.
nothing going on, or just people kind of lounging and taking a rich vacation with relaxation. Didn't seem like the Miami I was expecting.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanted like cocaine, drug lords, and
Strip
high
clubs on
boat.
every corner.
Yeah, exactly.
I just wanted to go to some like fancy party with people dressed up crazy. I guess we got that at that dive bar, but I was
We absolutely did.
mm-hmm.
Well, you want to do our closing?
Yep. Thank you everyone for listening. As always, follow us on our Miss Art World Instagram page. Check us out on our website and let us know your thoughts.
And then my plugs that I want to plug, if I come up with a better word. I have a Instagram page for my business. If you just go Cooksy Swim, you'll be able to find it on Facebook, Instagram. You can even find it Cooksy Swim on TikTok if you want to follow some of the videos. We're really trying to grow our social media presence. So if you can give that a quick like or a follow, that would be greatly appreciated. We're trying to get our numbers up because we are eventually going to be doing online courses to get your children, to get you to understand the basics of swim lessons so you can teach your own child how to swim, because from 0 or infant to about 4, you don't really need swim lessons because you can do it yourself. And we want to be able to teach parents that, because 1, it will be able to understand how your child develops, and 2, be able to understand what's safe for your child. Because a lot of times if you do swim lessons, you think your child is water safe, but they're only really water safe when they're around the person doing swim lessons with them. So it gives you a better understanding about your own child's safety. So like the Instagram page or follow the Instagram page, get more information, and thank you.